Hey now, Deadheads. Now, as I wait for this year's 60th anniversary box sets to arrive in the mail, I'd like to share with you some vinyl that I got recently, some Dead-related vinyl that I picked up. A little bit long overdue, but I'd like to share it with you anyway. The first being Grateful Dead at the Beacon Theater. That's June 1976, and that was a Record Store Day release back from early-ish April this year. This has been in some pretty heavy rotation here in my house. I'd like to share with you another release, also Dead-related, and that is the latest in the Bears Sonic Journals release series that I picked up recently from the Garcia Family Productions website. A bit of an interesting release, Dead-related. You can see it's got Jerry and Bobby on it. I'll tell you more about this when I open this up, but first, let's take a look at what's inside the Record Store Day release from the Beacon Theater. Opening things up, we've got this beautiful kind of gold foil packaging on the cover. I like the foil effect that they do. It makes it feel a little bit more premium. Now, I've been getting in the habit of keeping these hype stickers, this Record Store Day exclusive hype sticker. Limited edition of 7600 for 1976, and it's newly mastered by Jeffrey Norman from the original analog tapes, and so this is a new transfer for this release. Produced by Dave Lemieux, and you can see I paid a little bit on the high end for this release. Record Store Day releases here in New York City tend to be a little bit more expensive. Underneath this hype sticker, you can see some liner notes written by Jesse Jarnow. I believe these are pulled from the 2020 June 1976 box set, CD box set that was released about 5 years ago. And in these liner notes, he does a really good job setting the scene. You know, they're back from hiatus. They're playing smaller theaters like the Beacon Theater. He tells the story of how it earned its nickname, the Break-In Theater, here on the second page. And so overall, short and sweet liner notes from Jesse Jarnow. Always happy to get his liner notes. Big fan of the good old Grateful Dead cast. And he just does such a great job setting the scene. Now, when we get to the records, you can see it's pressed on black vinyl, some pretty thick black vinyl. Came in really clean. I ended up cleaning this in my ultrasonic cleaner just because I had it out for that Jerry Garcia band release, that Don't Let Go release, that also came out on Record Store Day. But I cleaned it. I put it in some fresh MoFi style inner sleeves just to protect this release. But if we look at what it originally came in, it came in these black paper sleeves, which I find are pretty hit or miss. I don't love them. They don't always make your records dirty, but I try to avoid them wherever possible. And then if I close things up and flip it over, you can see once again, limited edition of 7600, the track listing, and produced for release by David Lemieux. So it's a pretty cool release. I like this release a lot. It seems like June 1976 is going to be the latest CD box set that's going to get the Record Store Day release breakout treatment. We saw this with a few other box sets. We had a lot of Europe 72 for a while. Then we had all the Get You on the Light box sets kind of sprinkled in between 2020, I guess, and then last year. So I guess they spent about 4 years releasing those on vinyl. The Buffalo Show, I think first was Barton Hall, then the Buffalo Show, and then the two others. Boston, I think it was New Haven, were the Get You on the Light box sets. I suspect we'll see a similar treatment for the June 1976 releases. And so expect to see, if I had to look in my crystal ball and expect what's going to come next for Record Store Day Black Friday, next year's Record Store Day, we're probably going to see more 1976. Like I said, this is a pretty good sounding box set. It does not disappoint. Came in clean. I did give it a clean on my ultrasonic, but it didn't really need it. Standouts, and these are going to be maybe boring and expected standouts, but playing in the band takes up a whole side. Beautiful, really great playing in the band. Just enough spaciness for me. It just sounds magnificent. And then the other standout is the Help and Slip. The Franklin's was kind of hit or miss. It was a pretty boilerplate Franklin's, I thought, but the Help Slip was really great. So it was Help Slip on one side. I think that was side 8, and then you have to swap the record over, and so maybe that takes away a little bit of the juice before you get into Franklin's Tower. It doesn't really deliver on the build-up from Slipknot, but you swap the record over, side 9, you got Franklin's Tower, and it's good, but it's not explosive like many Franklin's Towers are. So it's a good version of a great song. We're used to great versions of Franklin's Tower, but I'll take a good version. Can't complain about that. And then that goes into Around and Around in US Blues. And so solid, track list on this, solid set list on this. I'll never complain about getting the wheel. I love the wheel. A lot of other great tracks on this, but those are the standouts. Playing in the Band and then Help and Slip. And then we've got an interesting release from the Bears Sonic Journals series. Single disc release, nice, short, sweet, acoustic release. Pretty interesting one. And so let me show you what's inside, and then I'll tell you why this is so interesting. Opening things up, we've got some liner notes, actually some pretty good liner notes here. You've got a small interview with Wavy Gravy, who organized this Sing Out for Sight benefit. You've got some production notes here. And then when we open things up, we've got the liner notes, once again from Jesse Jarnow. I suspect these are probably a couple years old. I think this was out on CD a few years ago, just now coming out on vinyl. So he wrote this a few years ago, and really, really good kind of scene setting from Jesse Jarnow, explaining, it's 2/3 of the Grateful Dead. You had John Kahn filling in on stand-up bass, and then no keys on this. And then on the back, we've got some liner notes, some additional liner notes from Starfinder Stanley, who I believe is the instigator of this Bears Sonic Journals release series. When we look at the record itself, we see it comes in these black paper inner sleeves. Again, not always a fan of these. These are poly-lined, and so this came in nice and clean. Didn't even need to clean this on my record cleaner. It's on a beautiful pink swirl vinyl, almost reminiscent of an eyeball, which is probably appropriate because this is the Sing Out for Sight benefit, helping to support eye surgeries in, I think it was Nepal and India. So a feel-good concert, for a good cause, and that's why it's a bit of a shorter set list, a rare acoustic set for 1981, and why it has such a unique lineup. So that's the new Bears Sonic Journals release, available from Garcia Family Productions website. I think other places as well, but don't quote me on that. I picked it up from the Garcia Family website. Really great release, really great sounding release. Noted in Jesse Jarnow's liner notes, this was actually recorded on 2-track reel-to-reel tape, which was a bit of a rarity for that time, especially for something that wasn't, a full-fledged Grateful Dead concert. It wasn't something that they intended for release. It was more archival documenting, but the sound guy, I guess, just brought his 2-track reel-to-reel. Cassettes were really the go-to for this era for 1981. So we've got a better sounding than most release for this era, which is great because, it's an acoustic set, and you want to have, all of the intricacy there. You want to have that level of detail captured, with this full band playing acoustic. Some standouts, and I'm going to cheat a little bit, but Jack-A-Row is quite good. A rare Monkey and the Engineer, or I guess rare these days. They played it for the 1980 Reckoning run, famously made it onto Reckoning. I think Bobby said in an interview recently that he does not intend on playing Monkey and the Engineer ever again, which was kind of a bummer. I was hoping for maybe an acoustic Bobby or maybe a full Dead and Company Monkey and the Engineer, but I guess we cannot expect that anytime soon. On the B-side, we've got a slow Friend of the Devil, fairly newly introduced, maybe a few years before, slower Friend of the Devil. El Paso, Baby It Ain't No Lie was good, but On the Road Again. I love On the Road Again. Really enjoyed that. And then I think one of the last Oh Boys, which is a Buddy Holly cover, one of the last times that they played this. Interesting early set that they played. I think the Jerry Garcia Band had a show later that night. Jerry and John Kahn had to boogie over to play a Jerry Garcia Band show. But they got, like I said, 2/3 of the band together. They got Mickey and Billy, Bobby and Jerry, as well as John Kahn on a acoustic stand-up bass for this. So no Phil and no Keith. So no Brent Midland, which was a bit rare for 1981. And overall, a solid release. Like I said, it sounds good because of the 2-track reel-to-reel recording. Great pressing, didn't need to clean it. Pressed in Canada, so I'm not sure where the pressing plant would be, but pretty good pressing. No complaints here, and it's not an expensive release. We're used to these expensive $100 plus big box sets of 4, 5, 6 records. A single record release, acoustic Dead, it's interesting, it's unique, it's different, and it's affordable. And so I would recommend this to any Deadhead, but especially if you're a fan of Reckoning, if you're a fan of Acoustic Dead, if you're a fan of Dick's Picks Volume 8, the first set from that Acoustic Dead, I would recommend picking this up because you get the old standards as well as some of the traditional kind of more folky songs that they only really play as an acoustic band. So would highly recommend this release, would recommend picking this up. And so at the start of this video, I mentioned, the 60th anniversary box sets coming out soon. By the time I upload this, I think it's maybe right after release date, but people are anxiously checking their tracking numbers, ready for them to arrive on their doorsteps. We've got a few other newer Dead-related releases coming out. One that just came out, hopefully I'll be doing a video of that one soon as well as some teasing from Real Gone Music for this year's Dick's Picks release. Now, I checked my old order emails, and I think they usually announce them in May, but I've heard this year, late June, we're going to get an announcement for a new Dick's Picks. I don't think it's going to be Dick's Picks Volume 4. I suspect they do that at the end of this year. I think it's going to be a newer Dick's Picks for the first time on vinyl. So really excited to see what that's going to be. Drop a comment down below what you're hoping it's going to be for a new Dick's Picks first time pressed on vinyl coming out this year from Real Gone. I suspect we'll get that announcement within the next couple weeks, and hopefully the release date, the street date, will be late June so we can start listening to it. But I think many of us are going to be still in the middle of getting through 60 CDs from Grateful Dead Productions as well. So it's going to be a lot of great music this June, probably a lot of great music this summer, a lot to keep us busy. And then who knows what else, the rest of 2025 is going to hold. Like I said, we'll probably get a second Dick's Picks release. My suspicion is that we'll get Dick's Picks Volume 4 in the fall, near the end of this year. We also have a couple anniversaries coming up this year that I haven't heard a whole lot about yet. We've got the anniversary of Blues for Allah. I'm hoping we get an expanded edition. There's some studio outtakes. I think there's like 6 CDs worth of studio outtakes floating around. I think they're over on Re-Listen. Listen to them one time. Really interesting, great stuff over there. Would love to get a cleaned up version with an official release. And then we've got a 50th anniversary of the Great American Music Hall show that, one from the Vault show, formerly called the Make Believe Ballroom show for the old school bootleg collectors. That was, the first premiere of those Blues for Allah songs. Maybe that will be the expanded edition of Blues for Allah. I don't know. Since it's already been released, I'm going to guess probably not. But I'm curious to see if they do anything for the anniversary of that Great American Music Hall One from the Vault show, because it's a ripper. It's great. I mean, that is the quintessential Help Slip Franklin, in my opinion, which is the first Help Slip Franklin, the first live one. So I'm hoping we get something to recognize the anniversary of that performance. But that's it for today. Some interesting stuff. I've still got some more stuff to catch up on, and a lot more coming soon. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have a wonderful day. Peace.